Hey everyone! Today, we're going to explore one of the most interesting and controversial periods in history, the rise and fall of the Umayyad Dynasty, the first dynasty to claim the title of Caliphate in the Islamic world. This story begins in the year 661 CE, when a man named Muawiyah, the governor of Syria under the Rashidun Caliphate, stepped up to take control after the assassination of the fourth caliph, Ali. Muawiyah wasn't just any leader, he was a master politician, someone who understood power and authority better than most. Under his rule, the Umayyads brought stability to the region, though their methods were often harsh. Rebellions were crushed without mercy, and dissent was not tolerated. But with this firm grip, they managed to create a vast empire that stretched across North Africa, Spain, and parts of the Indian subcontinent, even reaching into Central Asia. Despite this incredible expansion, the Umayyads couldn't hold on to everything they conquered. Internal divisions, constant civil wars, and rivalries eventually weakened their grip, and in 750 CE, they were overthrown by the Abbasids, who claimed their lineage gave them a stronger right to rule. But let's rewind a bit to understand how all of this came to be. After the death of the Prophet Muhammad, his close companion Abu Bakr became the first caliph, laying the foundation for the Islamic Caliphate. Abu Bakr and the three caliphs who followed him are known in Sunni tradition as the Rashidun Caliphs. However, not everyone agreed with this leadership structure. Shia Muslims, for example, believe Ali, the Prophet's cousin and son-in-law, was the only rightful leader. During the Rashidun period, Islamic armies launched massive campaigns, spreading their influence far and wide, from Syria and Egypt to Persia and beyond. But trouble began when Uthman, the third caliph, was assassinated in his own home. His death set off a chain of events that shook the Islamic world. Ali, who succeeded him, faced a fractured empire and growing unrest, particularly from Muawiyah, who was Uthman's cousin. Muawiyah demanded justice for Uthman's murder, and this disagreement escalated into a full-blown civil war known as the First Fitna. The war ended with Ali's assassination by a radical group called the Kharijites, who also tried to kill Muawiyah but failed. With Ali gone, Muawiyah emerged as the undisputed leader. His reign marked a period of relative stability. From his capital in Damascus, he implemented reforms, like establishing a police force and administrative systems, while also leading military campaigns that extended the empire's borders. But his decision to name his son Yazid as his successor sparked outrage. The Arabs were not used to dynastic rule, and Yazid's reputation didn't help. Key figures like Hussein ibn Ali and Abdullah ibn Zubair openly opposed him. In 680 CE, Hussein, encouraged by promises of support from the people of Kufa, marched toward Iraq to challenge Yazid. However, Yazid's forces intercepted Hussein at Karbala, leading to one of the most tragic and symbolic events in Islamic history. Hussein and his small band of followers were massacred, and he himself was beheaded. This event, remembered as the Battle of Karbala, became a defining moment, especially for Shia Muslims, symbolizing resistance against tyranny. But Yazid's troubles didn't end there. His heavy-handed rule led to revolts in Medina and Mecca. His army brutally suppressed the Medinan uprising, and during the siege of Mecca, the Kaaba itself was damaged. Yazid's sudden death in 683 CE left his empire in chaos, with Abdullah ibn Zubair continuing his rebellion and claiming the title of caliph. Yazid's son, Muawiyah II, briefly succeeded him but rejected the blood-stained legacy of his father and died just months later. With that, the rule of the Sufyanid branch of the Umayyads came to an end, leaving the empire in chaos. And after the chaos and instability following Yazid's death, finally led to a shift in power within the Umayyad family. The reins of the empire passed to Marwan ibn Hakam, a cousin of Muawiyah, marking the rise of the Marwanid branch of the dynasty. Marwan came to power with a promise that Khalid, Yazid's younger son, would succeed him. But promises in politics often mean little, and Marwan had no intention of keeping his word. Instead, his reign marked the beginning of a new chapter for the Umayyads, one defined by his own lineage, the Marwanids. Marwan's first priority was to regain control of Egypt, which had aligned itself with Abdullah ibn Zubair's faction during the ongoing power struggle. While he successfully brought Egypt back into the fold, his time in power was cut short. He died just 9 months later in 685 CE. This left the weight of the empire's problems squarely on the shoulders of his son, Abd al-Malik, who would prove to be one of the dynasty's most capable leaders. Meanwhile, in Kufa, a man named al-Mukhtar rose up, seeking to avenge the death of Hussein ibn Ali. Aligning himself with Abdullah ibn Zubair for a time, al-Mukhtar systematically went after those involved in Hussein's murder, even defeating an Umayyad army led by Ubaydullah, the same general who had commanded Yazid's forces at Karbala. However, al-Mukhtar's ambitions to establish a caliphate under one of Ali's sons created a rift between him and Abdullah, leading to yet another clash. In 687 CE, al-Mukhtar was killed during the siege of Kufa by Zubayrid forces, but his movement sowed the seeds of what would later evolve into Shi'ism as a distinct religious sect. With Kufa pacified, Abd al-Malik turned his focus to Abdullah ibn Zubair, who was still holding out in Mecca. Abd al-Malik dispatched his most ruthless general, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, to deal with the rebel leader. Hajjaj's reputation for cruelty was well earned, and after a brutal siege of Mecca, Abdullah fell in 692 CE, dying in battle rather than surrendering. With his rival defeated, Abd al-Malik could finally bring some stability to the empire, though his reliance on Hajjaj's heavy-handed tactics drew criticism. One of Abd al-Malik's most enduring achievements was the centralization and Arabization of the empire. By standardizing administration and introducing official coins inscribed in Arabic, he strengthened the foundations of the state. His reign also saw the construction of the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, a significant architectural and religious project that some believe was intended to rival the Kaaba, which had been under Abdullah's control during the Civil War. When Abd al-Malik died, his son al-Walid I inherited the throne and took the empire to its greatest territorial extent. Under the guidance of Hajjaj, who remained a key figure, two brilliant commanders, Muhammad ibn Qasim and Qutayba ibn Muslim, extended Umayyad influence into modern-day Pakistan and Central Asia. At the same time, the Muslim conquest of Spain began in earnest. In 711 CE, Tariq ibn Ziyad, a Berber general, led a daring campaign into the Iberian Peninsula, defeating the Visigoth king Roderick at the Battle of Guadalete. With reinforcements from Musa ibn Nusayr, governor of North Africa, Tariq swiftly brought most of Spain under Umayyad control, though plans to advance further into Europe were unexpectedly halted when both commanders were recalled to Damascus. Despite these military triumphs, al-Walid faced internal challenges. He attempted to bypass his brother Sulayman as heir in favor of his own son, but Sulayman refused to step aside. Al-Walid's death brought an end to the dispute, and Sulayman ascended the throne, though his rule was marked by mismanagement and setbacks. One of his most disastrous moves was launching a massive campaign against Constantinople in 717 CE. The siege ended in a humiliating defeat, not only halting Umayyad expansion, but also dealing a severe blow to the empire's resources and morale. Realizing his own sons were too young to succeed him, Sulayman named his cousin Umar ibn Abd al-Aziz as the next caliph. Umar II's short reign is remembered as a rare moment of reform and justice in Umayyad history. Known for his piety, Umar ended controversial practices like the public cursing of Ali, and made genuine efforts to improve the empire's governance. He also reached out to marginalized groups, including non-Arab Muslims who had long been mistreated under Umayyad rule. Unfortunately, his efforts were cut short when he was poisoned after just 3 years in power, a tragic loss for an empire in desperate need of reform. After Umar's death, the throne passed to Yazid II, another son of Abd al-Malik. Yazid, however, lacked the ability or vision to rule effectively. Distracted by personal indulgences, his reign saw the empire drift further into instability. But for now, the dynasty persisted, though cracks were beginning to show. And the Umayyad Empire was in a state of upheaval following the turbulent reign of Yazid II. When Hisham, Yazid's brother, assumed power, he inherited an empire battered by civil strife and instability. Determined to restore order, Hisham proved to be a strong and decisive ruler. He reinstated many of the reforms introduced by Umar II that had been abandoned under Yazid's administration. These reforms aimed to bring a semblance of stability and fairness to the administration, even if the task was monumental. Hisham's military campaigns met with mixed outcomes. In Sindh, modern-day Pakistan, his forces successfully quelled a Hindu revolt, reaffirming Umayyad control over the region. But the situation in North Africa was far more complex. The Berbers, spurred on by the fiery rhetoric of Kharigite preachers, rose in rebellion against Umayyad rule. This uprising culminated in the devastating Battle of the Nobles, where much of the Arab elite in Africa was wiped out. Despite repeated efforts, the Umayyads failed to fully suppress the revolt, and Morocco slipped out of their grasp. However, the Berbers' lack of unity eventually led to the collapse of the rebellion around 743 CE, saving the remaining territories of North Africa for the time being. Al-Andalus, the jewel of the western provinces, had also fallen into chaos. Yet here, Hisham's leadership shone. Under the command of the capable Abd al-Rahman al-Ghafiqi, the province was brought back under control. However, attempts to push further into Europe ended in a sobering defeat at the Battle of Tours in 732 CE, where the Franks, led by Charles Martel, decisively halted Umayyad expansion into the heart of the continent. When Hisham died in 743 CE, the fragile stability he had managed to impose unraveled quickly. Walid II, Yazid II's son, succeeded him, but his reign was short-lived and tumultuous. Overthrown and killed by Yazid III, a son of Walid VIII, the power struggle spiraled into what became known as the Third Fitna, the third civil war in Islamic history. Yazid III's reign lasted a mere 6 months before he died, and his brother Ibrahim ruled for only 2 months before being overthrown by Marwan II, an elderly and experienced military commander. Marwan II's rule marked the end of the Umayyad dynasty. Though a capable general, he lacked the diplomatic finesse to consolidate his power. He relied on brute force to suppress uprisings, managing to bring an end to the Third Fitna in 747 CE. But by then, the cracks in the empire were too deep to repair. Meanwhile, a new threat was rising in the east. The Abbasids, a faction claiming descent from the Prophet Muhammad's uncle Abbas, had gained significant support in Khorasan, a region vital to the empire's power base. The Umayyad military, exhausted from years of internal conflict, was no match for the Abbasids' organized and motivated forces. By 749 CE, the Abbasids had effectively taken control of the eastern provinces, rallying under their black banners. Resentful tribes that Marwan II had subjugated through force, now aligned with the Abbasids, further weakening the Umayyads' position. In 750 CE, the decisive battle took place near the Zab River, where Marwan's forces were decisively defeated. He fled to Egypt, hoping to regroup and stage a comeback, but the Abbasids pursued him relentlessly. He was killed before he could mount any significant resistance, marking the end of Umayyad rule. The Abbasids showed no leniency. They systematically hunted down and executed all remaining male members of the Umayyad family. Their graves in Damascus were desecrated, and the remains of most were destroyed. Only Umar II's grave was spared due to his reputation for justice and piety. In one of the most infamous episodes, surviving Umayyad members were lured to a supposed reconciliation banquet, only to be murdered on the spot. Yet, one man managed to escape this brutal purge. Abd al-Rahman, a grandson of Hisham, fled across the empire in a perilous journey. Eventually, he found refuge in Al-Andalus, where he established the Emirate of Cordoba in 756 CE. This new Umayyad state would rival the Abbasids in culture and sophistication, keeping the legacy of the dynasty alive in the West. The Umayyads were the first dynasty to transform the caliphate from a position of religious leadership into a hereditary monarchy. They played a pivotal role in centralizing the administration and expanding the empire to its largest territorial extent. However, their policies and actions, particularly under rulers like Yazid I, left deep scars. The massacre at Karbala and the subsequent persecution of the Prophet's family and followers alienated many, especially Shia Muslims. This resentment, coupled with the perceived decadence of later Umayyad rulers, ultimately contributed to their downfall. Historians remain divided in their assessment of the Umayyads. While some praise their administrative and military achievements, others criticize their excesses and disregard for the principles of justice and equality. Regardless of perspective, their impact on the Islamic world was profound, laying the groundwork for both political and cultural developments in the centuries to come.